Hi, and thanks for joining in on this training video on adult SEO ranking factors. In this video, I'll be discussing what I consider to be the most important ranking factors in adult SEO. Now, before I start, I should mention that there are hundreds of various factors that Google considers important when determining your rank, many of which I'm sure they don't even make public. So all we can do is work with what they have made public and pair that with personal experience, which is what I'll be doing in this video. So to prepare for this, I pulled out my own list of 65 factors that I learned through experience play a role in how well you rank. I developed my list of 65 factors from an original list of a couple hundred factors that I found on Google Webmasters Forum a while back. Now, for the purpose of this training video, I further simplified this list by consolidating similar factors and by leaving out small factors that didn't play a significant enough of a role to worry about. For example, some of the factors that I consolidated were those that had separate factors for follow and no follow links. And for those who don't know, follow links are just standard links, and no follow links are those that use the rel equal no follow tag to prevent any value from being passed through the link. Also, I consolidated some that had separate factors for links that point to a page and links that point to a domain. Although they are different, and I do discuss that further, but for the purpose of this video, I just refer to both as a link to your site. Alright, so to start, I'd like to point out that all of my SEO ranking factors, they really break down into 4 categories. They break down into your linking factors, your page factors, your domain factors, and your social factors. And these aren't listed in any particular order of importance, since you can't necessarily rank by only paying attention to one single category. They all kind of chip in to a successful SEO campaign. And I'd also like to mention that although social plays a much bigger role in ranking than it used to, it's still not all that critical for ranking adult sites. Although since social signals might factor in for us more in the future, and since they are a good source of additional traffic, I included them in on this list. Alright, so let's start with the first ranking factors on our list, which are the linking factors. And the first linking factors include the number of links with exact match anchor text, like porn movies, for example, the number of links with partial match anchor text, like amateur porn movies, the number of links with related anchor text, like XXX videos, and the number of links with unrelated anchor text, like click here or maybe continue. Also, I'd like to mention that these 4 ranking factors take into account both internal and external links, meaning that Google considers the anchor text of both the links used to send surfers around your own site and the links that point to you from other sites. Alright, next we have the number of links from unique IPs and the number of links from unique C blocks. Now, for those of you not familiar with the term C blocks, it's the part of an IP address that's often shared with a lot of other websites. For example, if you're in a shared hosting account, you're sharing the same C block portion of the same IP. And here's what it looks like. The 209 is the C block on this IP address. So if you have 1,000 links from blogs all hosted on the same C block, they're likely to pass less value than 1,000 links from 1,000 C blocks. Because if they're all from the same C block, it's an indicator that the same webmaster gave you all those links. Or you run the site yourself and you gave yourself all those links. Now, just because C blocks are a ranking factor doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have all of your links coming from different C blocks in order to rank well. I know a lot of site networks that rank awesome without having to worry about keeping all their C blocks unique. I think it's really just an indicator of how diverse your link profile is. Alright, next we have the total number of internal links and the total number of external links. This is an important ranking factor because it tells Google a lot about the value and the usefulness of your site to its own search engine users. Google, like any other site, needs to provide quality content to its users, or they'll eventually go looking for it elsewhere. And the content they provide is useful search results. So if they crawl your site and see that you only have 3 links to other internal pages, but 300 links out to other sites, then it's likely that your site isn't going to provide a lot of value to their users. This is one of the reasons that Google suggests that you keep your outbound links on any given page to under 100. Now, just like any other ranking factor, ignoring this one doesn't necessarily mean that you'll struggle to rank well. but it will definitely help your rankings if you try to increase the depth of your site by creating more content and more internal links, and by limiting your outbound links. Okay, the number of links from pages and the number of links from domains. These factors are used to calculate your link distribution. So if you have 1,000 links from pages, but all those links come from only 10 domains, they'll pass less value than 1,000 links from 1,000 domains. And this is really because a high page to domain ratio is indicative of site-wide links, like sidebar and footer links, which Google considers less valuable than single links within the content of a page. And this makes sense from its perspective, really. Sidebar and footer links are easy to get, and they're separated from the content of a page, making them unobtrusive to surfers. But a link within the content of a blog post, on the other hand, it's intended to increase the value of the post. It's recommending that you also check out that link since it supports the content somehow. So if you have a teen blog and one of your posts has some pics and a written description of the girl, and also includes a link to another teen blog, you're recommending that your surfer should visit that blog to see more teens. And this recommendation sends more SEO value through that link than a link buried somewhere else in the site. So when Google sees that you have 200 links from one domain, it's going to recognize that and value them accordingly. All right, next we have the number of links from subdomains. Links from subdomains, they're often easier to get than links from root domains, since many blog hosting sites, both adult and mainstream, make it easy to set up subdomain accounts. And even automation software can create hundreds of them in minutes. And it's because of this that it's important to keep your percentage of subdomain links low. All right, next we have the percentage nofollow links. And even though nofollow links block unique link value from being passed to you, they still show up in your link profile. And they're a good signal to Google that you're getting your links naturally. Okay, the page rank of your links, the page authority of your links, and the domain authority of your links. PageRank has been a big topic of discussion over the years for a lot of webmasters. Some think it's an important ranking factor and others don't. But despite any opinions that you or I might have on PageRank, Google does use it to indicate its level of trust that it has for a web page. And because of that, it's a factor that you shouldn't ignore. And like PageRank, page authority and domain authority are two additional trust indicators engineered by the guys over at SEO Moz. Page and domain authority have become trusted metrics within the SEO industry, which makes them important to consider. All right, so that wraps up our primary linking factors, and now it's time to go over the many page factors that all play a role in your ranking potential. So first we're going to talk about the 4 factors involving your title tag. First is the number of keywords in your title, then the keyword that's used in the first word of your title, which should always be your target keyword when possible. The number of characters in your title, which should be less than 70 since that's what Google displays in its search results. And finally, the TF-IDF score of your title. And that's a stat that search engines use to score a page according to how relevant it is for a particular word. So it tells them how important a given word is within the page, or the title, or whatever's being scored. So the more relevant your title is for a particular word, the higher your score. All right, so next we're going to move on to your meta description and your meta keyword tags. Factors for these metas include the number of keywords in your meta description tag. Now, ideally, you should use your target keyword as soon as possible in your description, and you should also aim to keep the length of your description to around 155 characters. And next is the presence of a meta keyword tag. Now, meta keywords have been flat out ignored by all major search engines for years now. They do you absolutely no good, and they can actually do you harm within Bing and Yahoo. A while back, Bing made it public that it considered meta keyword tags to be indicative of web spam, and that the presence of them alone could cost you some points. Now, I doubt this will make or break your site, but just for the fact that they've been abused into extinction, I personally choose to never use them. All right, now we're going to talk about some ranking factors involving the body of your page, or your actual content. First is the number of keywords in your page. Now, I'd like to take a second to say that stuffing as many instances of your keyword into your text is not going to help you rank well for that keyword. Not anymore. A long time ago, search engines weren't as sophisticated, and they had to rely on metrics like keyword density to determine relevancy. And that's no longer the case, and nowadays you can actually get flagged for stuffing too many keywords into your page. So don't consider this a ranking factor as a reason to stuff your page with keywords. Rather, you should consider it a reason to limit your keyword usage to a reasonable level. And keep in mind that Google is very good at spotting related words. So if your target keyword phrase is amateur porn, you'll get credit towards amateur porn for other phrases like homemade, first time, girlfriend, and so on. All right, next is the location of the keyword of your first keyword in your page. Be sure to include your target keyword phrase as close to the beginning of your page as possible. And next is the number of words in your page, and then the number of tokenized words in your page. And tokenized means words as well as phrases, punctuations, spaces, and line breaks. And then finally is the TF-IDF score of your page. And next are the H1 tags. And the first factor is the keyword used in the first word of your H1 tag, and then the number of keywords used in all of your H1 tags. All right, next is the number of keywords used in all of your image alt tags. Using keywords in alt tags is something that you definitely want to do because they'll help you rank not only your pages but your images as well. Just be sure to write alts that truly summarize the photo instead of just keyword stuffing. And be sure you don't write alts on images that are part of your site structure, like graphical elements of your sites, which I see a lot of guys still doing. Think about it this way. When you go to an image search for big tits, for example, that's what you see. Google's not getting tricked into thinking that your navigation icons or your banner is a picture of some big tits. But it will know that you're trying to stuff keywords in places that they don't belong, and you'll probably get dinged for it. All right, moving along, we have the percentage of internal nofollow links and the percentage of external nofollow links. So as I mentioned earlier in this video, nofollow tags within links tell Google not to pass any link value through to the other side. Nofollow tags are intended to be used to either block value through a link that you manually built, sold, or traded, or to block value through to pages within your site that you don't feel need the added value, like your terms and conditions page or your sitemaps. Be aware of how many nofollows that you use, though, if you choose to use them at all, because using too many could raise a flag about the credibility of the sites that you're linking to. If you nofollow 75% of your outbound links, Google might stop to wonder why you're linking to so many sites that you don't feel comfortable enough to pass value to. All right, and next is the URL used in your canonical tag. Now, I'm not going to get into canonical tags in detail here. I'm going to save that for another training video. But for those who aren't sure what that is, it's the metadata that Google recommends that you use to identify the source of original content on your site. The URL included in this tag tells Google which page should get credit for your original content. It's useful for sites that essentially duplicate its own content in archives and categories. So making sure that Google knows which page you prioritize ensures that the pages that you want get ranked. All right, and finally we're going to talk about the last page factor, which is how long your page takes to load. Google announced publicly a while back that it was going to start factoring in your page load times when determining your rank, even though previously they had stated that they weren't going to do that. This wasn't huge news, though, because for the most part, we all try to make sure that our sites load as fast as possible. We know that slow loading pages push away visitors and ultimately affect our traffic, conversions, our revenue. But Google released stats showing that their search traffic drops by a certain percent for every so many milliseconds of page load time. And Yahoo released similar stats years ago showing that their sales also dropped by a measurable percent for every so many milliseconds longer it took their pages to fully load. And this is important to understand because Google isn't grading your page load times on any lag that you can visually detect. It's measuring your page load times in milliseconds. And these days, milliseconds matter. And it makes sense that Google would announce this publicly. And here's why. In order to crawl your website, Google needs to dispatch a bot called a Googlebot. So the first thing Googlebot does is send a request to connect to your site. And it then has to wait for that connection to be established before it can go to work. And while it's waiting to establish this connection with your site, it's costing Google a little bit of money in the form of unused network resources. Because when Googlebot is sitting around waiting to access your site, no other Googlebots can use that pending connection since it's been placed on hold. Now, this isn't a big deal if you're talking about one penny connection, but when you think about it in terms of Google's scale, the trillions of links that they have to crawl, it starts to add up. Too many slow connections start to drag down Google's engine. And when they talk about this happening, they value the daily monetary loss in the millions. So from this business perspective, it makes sense that they would want to deduct points from sites that make Googlebot sit around for too long. So the faster your page loads, the more money they save. So they actually give points to sites just for helping them to keep the line moving. All right, so here's a link to the Google Page Speed tool that you can use to check your load times and also to get some suggestions on how to shave off a few milliseconds. I personally like to keep my own sites above a score of 80 when possible. I've actually seen some page sites hit the 90s, which is really impressive, since it's not that easy to score high. But give it a shot, because it'll probably play a part in how well you rank. All right, so now we're moving on to the domain factors. And the first factor is the age of your domain. As a lot of you probably already know, older domains tend to have more authority than newer domains, simply because they've been around for longer. So if you have a chance to buy an existing site or to develop a new site on an older domain, it might help you rank a little bit easier than if you were to start with a brand new domain. And next we have the domain extension. .coms are still the best extension that you can get, so whenever possible you should use a .com. Others like .net, .orgs, they work too. .infos tend to look like spam just because they were so cheap to register back when they were released that they were used heavily for web spam, and they're therefore, they're still associated with it. And there's a few others that I see ranking in the top 10s as well, but I still try to grab .coms whenever I can. And next we have exact match keyword domains. These are valuable not only because they give you a little bit of a head start on the rankings for the most part, but because they're also easy to remember and they're great for branding. Of course, I'm sure you know that it's not 1998 anymore, and they're pretty hard to find. And finally, we have the number of keywords in your domain. Having a domain that include your target keywords are great, especially if you can get one that has a keyword as the first word in the domain. But don't get tempted to repeat keywords too many times. Something like sexpornsex.com is likely to get flagged as spam. And next are the domain value factors. So first we have the presence of hyphen in your domain. For example, freeporn-tube.com. And then we have the number of hyphens in your domain, which could be something like free-porn-tube.com. So obviously the fewer hyphens, the better. Another factor is the presence of numbers in your domain. So something like freeporntube69.com. And like hyphens, the fewer numbers, the better. And finally, we have the total character count of your domain. And again, the shorter is better. Although long domains won't hurt you, assuming that they're not stuffed with keywords. Okay, the next factor we're going to talk about is the presence of www in the URL. The reason this is important is because Google and all other search engines consider www to be its own domain. They essentially consider it a subdomain. And this is important because if you actively build links both to your www.domain and just your root domain, then you're essentially cutting all of your link building efforts in half, because Google will be looking at your domain and your www subdomain as separate. Now, if you've already been doing that in the past, the fix is really simple. All you have to do is set up a 301 redirect from either the www or the root domain and point it to the other. All right, next we have the presence of a keyword in your full URL. Now, this one's a little bit different than having a keyword present in your domain, because this factor refers to a keyword anywhere within your full URL. For example, domain.com/freepornvideos.html is a URL that contains a keyword. And then finally, we have the folder depth of your URL. And this is an important factor because Google looks at it to determine how easily accessible the content is from the page in your homepage. If the page you're looking at is, or if the page it's looking at is 3 folders deep, then it's safe to assume that it potentially takes 3 clicks to access the content. And for the sake of usability, Google tends to prefer to index links that are as easily accessible as possible. Now, this doesn't mean that long URLs won't get ranked, of course. It just means that it's a factor that's considered. And very deep URLs might have a little bit more of a difficult time getting ranked. And finally, the last adult SEO ranking factor that I'm going to talk about today are the social ranking factors. Now, these are the factors that are relating to social media, and they're becoming increasingly more important for SEO. Now, I don't think they're as important for adult as they are for mainstream yet, but they should still be considered as an important ranking factor. All right, so first up we have the number of Facebook shares and the number of Facebook likes, the number of tweets, the number of Twitter followers, and the number of Google Pluses. And I'm sure you're all familiar with these, so I won't go into the details of each, but just keep in mind that Google does look for them and they consider these social signals when determining rank. Okay, so that wraps up my list of adult SEO ranking factors. Quite a bit of info was shared here today, so feel free to visit our Pro Members Q&A board if you have any questions at all. And as usual, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next.